Be grateful for the opportunity to live and breathe. That is so big because we sometimes get so caught up in the problems of life that we don't necessarily reflect on the importance of life itself, which leads to number 6. The voice of God is the thought of man. Now this hits home for me personally because I believe that God is in each and every single one of us. Now we can all kind of argue about how that is so, but I like to look at it like, as described here, is that if God is our imagination and we think our own thoughts, no one can know our own thoughts. Each of us have our own thoughts. We could be sitting here being attentive to the presentation, or we could be here and back at home. We could be here in another world. It's all about perception of each of us as individuals. The next 2, there is a war on love. Now, I like to, going through the experiences of life, I could put into 2 categories. There's only love and there's only fear. Negativity, anger, stress, anxiety, all of the negative emotions that we experience, that's all fear. Everything optimistic, positivity, that's all love. So, in order to control us, they got to keep us in a fear state. So this is why I want to point that out. Overcome anything in your life and heal, which goes right in line with number 9. V equals P minus O. It's still the formula of life. It's about elimination. Elimination, elimination, elimination. It's not even so much about the diet. The diet assists with the process of elimination, but we're a degenerative species from our parents, their parents have been living and eating incorrectly, which has weakened our genetic pool. And this is why the elimination concept is so important to comprehend fully. And number 10, we must protect our offspring at all costs. Now, here we go. 2 scriptures from the Bible. Again, I'm not saying that the Bible is the end-all, be-all, but it's like any book. You pick a book and you can resonate with it, that book is valuable to you. 2 scriptures. Surprisingly enough, they're back-to-back. Genesis 1:28 and Genesis 1:29. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And God said, I have made you every herb and yield seeds which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you it shall be food. Now, in these 2 scriptures, it was very clear our intentions were to procreate. Now, as we dive into the mucus dynamics response, Arnold there describes and talks about this in-depthly. And the first 20 times I read the book, I never really even paid attention to it. It took a life experience to go back and be like, oh my gosh, this makes a lot more sense now. Which I think that's how life goes. And of course, as I stated, if we're in a fear state, we're not going to want to reproduce. The world is too bad. We're being controlled by these crazy pus and mucus eaters, and it's so hectic, and I don't have the financial burden to have a kid. I can't do this. There's all these excuses. But if we go back to the beginning, this was our mission. Our mission in life was to procreate. So let's go directly to Aaron himself. Procreation is the most holy and divine act and charged with the highest responsibility, especially on the part of the Father. Now that just hit me like a ton of bricks when I took into consideration the fact that, I was raised in a culture where, we're supposed to have 10 kids. All of my brothers and sisters, we all have a lot of kids. That's a part of our culture. But it didn't really hit until I started to diet and I realized, you know what? It's not just about having kids, which we'll go down down the way here, but sex is a part of vitality. It is even, so to say, the parameter of regeneration, rejuvenation, youth, health, and happiness. Now, the act of sex is about love and nothing else. You're engaging in that love connection, which has the ability to create life. That's so powerful. Love is the greatest power, and it is, if natural, the highest invisible food from the infinite for soul and body. Now, I'm sure, and I can't say for everybody, but I know at some point in your life you've experienced that love feeling where I don't even eat. I could just be on the phone with my girl and we could be talking and feeling good and just be around her. I'm sure we've all experienced that at some point or another. Probably when we were younger, but we've experienced it. And that love, it's real. And so we have to take that into consideration and realize that they're trying to take love out of us. And they're trying to program us to be in a fear state. They're trying to program us. And when I say they, I'm referring to, I don't even know who they is. There's, like I said, the media's control, nutrition, the medical industry, which you'll see today, the law. It's all controlled by a small select few who are doing this for purpose. There is no higher moral duty of any kind than to produce a perfect being. Now we're getting to the more logistics of, well, it's not just about going out and having babies. Now it's about, well, what kind of babies are you having? You know, what are you doing for preparation to that? Which is what, it starts with the mother, of course. And in Eric's own words, motherhood with a mucusless diet before, during, and after pregnancy, development towards the Madonna-like holy purity principle, different from the dangerous called ordinary childbirth, with its ever-present risk of life known in our present civilization. Headaches, toothaches, vomiting, and all other so-called present pregnancy. This leads to painless childbirth, and ample sufficiency of very sweet milk, babies that never cry, babies who are very differently clean as compared with others, are the wonderful facts I've learned from every woman becoming a mother after having lived on this diet. Thousands of mothers unconsciously through overeating practically kill their children before they are born. Here then is the only way and correct way to fight infantile mortality. Now, what he's describing here is if mothers knew that they can have a baby and still feel good and have a painless childbirth, have no symptoms, and not experience any of the negative symptoms of giving or carrying a child and having a baby, do you think that most mothers' mindset would change on actually having a baby? You'd want to have a baby. You would want to reproduce. But because of civilization and diet and whatnot, it's not that way. Now, if you go and ask just random females, chances are they're going to be like, no, I don't want to have a baby. Because they're afraid of it. It's already programmed out. That's it. It's not going to happen. Continuing with that, one of the worst tragedies of ignorance is the expecting mother who eats twice as much because she is advised to eat for two. Isn't that a very common misconception? Oh, you're pregnant? Oh, you better be eating double then because you got to feed the baby. You shall love thy neighbor, and you do perhaps, but you kill your own child, partly at least before it is born. Latent disease, back to Eli's talk right there, because again, we're getting into the understanding of disease in general, is general and universal, even in the sense of procreation. From a natural, moral standpoint, says the philosopher, an unclean person has no right to produce a new being. You should not only generate, but reproduce yourself, says the great thinker Nietzsche. Now, here's where it starts to become a little bit more, now we're dissecting it. Now, okay, so in this statement, let's think about who's having the most kids. The pus and meat eaters, or practitioners of a diet and lifestyle as we're practicing. The ratio is very off. So if they're having sex off of stimulants, let's get drunk, let's go party, and then boom, have a baby. That's not love, but that's the babies that are being born into civilization. And then they're being forced to go through the procedure of induced pregnancy, medications, vaccination, formula. All of this it's a complete control from the very beginning. And it's gotten to be so bad now that you're having kids that are having all of these eliminations and diseases and quote unquote, however you want to consider it, at such an early development early stage of their development. This part right here is more along the lines of eugenics. What I want Devour to show you here is how to produce a genius. When humans ascend to a godlike being, we are only a shade of the original human caused through our degeneration, but you may yet experience what cannot be described. That this kind of eugenics is a fundamental truth of evolution into heaven on earth. That is very powerful if you just stop and realize that we don't see babies like as when Brother Ed was describing, there's a set parameter of what a child or infant should look like. Oh, they have to be chunky, they gotta be a little heavier, they gotta be bigger. Basing that, you're not gonna see that with a child or an infant who you're raising according to the standards of the mucus diet healing system. Which he brings out here. Modern babies are overfed. What is considered a well-fed and healthy-looking baby of average normal weight is in reality pounds of waste or decayed milk. So just as Eric describes in the body that, we carry all this waste matter, pounds and pounds of undigested waste matter and fecal matter inside of us. This applies also to the babies who are being force-fed typically formula, and it puffs them up. No more children's diseases. The baby's craving sweet and proves that fruit sugar is the essence of all dietetics. Babies and children must go through the same cleansing, healing process as do adults. Now, this is what the future and progression looks like, according to Eric. The sins of the father and the mothers produce diseased children, and children's children degenerating into death with the third generation. Which is why now more guys are unable to reproduce, because again, it's the diet, it's the lifestyle. And you have the babies that are born in today's time, based off of how the society and civilization is raising them, they won't be able to reproduce. Let's get that clear and understood right away. And that's, again, we're going back to the control of the population. We are only a shade of the original human caused through our degeneration. But you may experience what cannot be described. That this kind of eugenics is the fundamental truth of the evolution into heaven on earth. And mind you, this is well over 100 years now. So it's gotten a lot worse than it has gotten better. And because of that, we have to take that into consideration moving forward, and we have to be able to put our foot down on some way, shape, or form, but we just essentially don't know how, which I hope today's presentation will enlighten you on steps that we can take as a unity. But you and I and others who have learned this greatest and most important truth of life are the only ones in existence today who are in fact, and not by mind only, out of the road of darkness and unconscious suicide, and into the light, the new civilization, the light of physical regeneration, as a foundation of mental and spiritual revelation, like progress to the light of superior, that is to say, a spiritual world. So the bar is set already, and we have to meet that. We have to raise our standards to meet what Eric is describing. In this time frame, it's a lot more difficult now. That's for damn sure. And of course, I want to relate this back to the medical field because it goes hand in hand as the presentation will progress. Medical doctors and naturopaths alike will hardly agree at all in the new principles and arguments which I have brought out and postulated in this work. You cannot reason about colors with a person born blind. You cannot use the old arguments and the old physiology to refute my statements until you have personally experienced on your own body the truth of my teachings. You have to accept and believe the ones. So this is big because modern medicine, all doctors alike, they don't know shit about anything, especially when it comes to health, especially when it comes to healing. And because of that, the population kind of just falls victim to that because we have this inferiority to them as they're the superiors, they're the white coats, they have the educational background, and we got to listen to what they're saying because they know more about health and nutrition than what we do. But you take the responsibility to properly educate yourself and to actually go through the steps and procedures to learn, then you become more equipped and more prepared. And that self-knowledge that we talked about and the point of emphasis, you have to go through things in order to grow. You have to go through obstacles and tribulations in order to expand who you are and what you want to accomplish in life. Now, the reason why this topic is so sensitive to me is because of this. In 2020, my son Journey was kidnapped by CPS. This is Journey. That is that little baby right there. And this little 100% vegan baby is Journey right now. Now, leading up to his birth, mother and I started the mucus diet in 2014. And, 2016 it got really serious. I went through a lot of stages of extensive fast. I spent 9 months on just fruit. I was doing a lot of primarily raw. And around 2018, we had a discussion about having a baby. Now, this was my first discussion with someone that I cared about, where I was like, I want to have a baby. And so we did. And we decided to have a home birth. We decided to have a notice birth. We had all preparations set up. And so we did that. Everything went good. Everything was great. Second day that he was born, CPS is already at my door. Now, you would think, well, how the hell is that even possible? How can that even, what's going on? Well, going back to what Spirit was talking about, rule number one, you don't tell nobody what you're doing. But this is